So we played the right way, and we loved how we responded, and we played. It's great to get 7 goals, but we did it the right way. We played team first. We weren't extending our shifts. We weren't individually trying to score. We were scoring the right way, and that was certainly nice for us to see, and obviously nice for the group to get rewarded when they do that.
And with that, from Wild Coach Dean Evason, welcome into a late-night edition of Judd's Hockey Show, where it's Zulgad and Declan Goff, and there is so much to talk about. 7-2, the Wild, as you saw, if you're watching this, scored a season-high 7 goals tonight in what was probably their most impressive performance of the season, coming off what was probably their worst performance of the season on Tuesday against the San Jose Sharks. And Declan, let's just start here. Whatever buttons, and there were definitely buttons that Evason pushed with Kirill Kaprizov, they worked to perfection, because Kirill, coming off a, let's not sugarcoat this, dog of a game. It was a terrible game. He basically didn't show up. Now, that has not been the case all season, but Tuesday night it was. Kirill Kaprizov, a goal, 3 assists and 4 points. Matt Zuccarello, his usual line mate, who was with him at times, but certainly not all the time, because those two were broken up for chunks tonight. A goal, 2 assists, and 3 points for him. And then Eureka, Victor Rask, who spent the entire night centering for Kaprizov.
Never doubted him.
A goal, 2 assists for 3 points. And just for good measure, Rask, Kaprizov, and Zuccarello were all +4. But let's start with Kirill, and let's start with Dean Evason's ability to do something here that is so damn impressive, Dex, for those of us who have watched this team for a long time, on a night where Ryan Suter was in the building. And that is to take your superstar player, who, by the way, I think cares a lot. So like Kaprizov had a terrible game, but I was not in the camp of, well, it was a problematic game. But anyway, Evason pushes the buttons and doesn't just get, okay, that's better, right? We watched that game in the press box tonight. Kirill, for I think the first time for an entire game, was back to the 2020 Kirill from the pandemic shortened season, and was a man possessed. Like, whatever Dean did here, and I don't know if he talked to him too, but certainly taking him away from, or Zuccarello away from him and then putting them back together, it worked to perfection. I mean, there's no two ways about it. It worked to perfection.
Yeah, Kirill was awesome tonight. Yeah, and Dean deserves a hell of a lot of credit, too. He pushes all the right buttons. You gave him, here's your Judd Zulgad's patented #1 star.
Yeah, he was
in the post game. You and I were sitting next to each other as that one was wrapping up. You said that he deserves all the accolades for pushing the right buttons. Look, yeah, he was awesome with Victor Rask last season. I see a lot of these comments popped in on our YouTube channel. By the way, thank you for watching us right now, hanging out late with us. If you want regular Minnesota Wild conversations, hit the subscribe button. We'll also pump out Timberwolves, Vikings, Twins conversations, sometimes Twins, right here on our Score North YouTube channel. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. He was really good with Victor Rask last season, and in general, I think you knew he was going to break out and have a game like this. No one was doubting, I think, that Kirill wasn't able to wake up and have a performance like this. His metrics suggest that he has been playing well. He just hasn't gotten the goals. But there's definitely was something off with him. We saw that on Tuesday. You could say that maybe he played one of his worst games in his Wild tenure on Tuesday, at least one of his most forgettable ones. And it's okay to ask your superstar players to rise up when the moment needs, when you need them the most. And he eventually was able to do that this evening. I put out a graphic, I think, on our Score and our social media accounts yesterday. I said, give me a grade of Kirill Kaprizov's play through the first 15 games. And I would say the majority of people said anywhere between, some said F, which I think is a little harsh, but most said D+, C-. If you're asking me to grade his play through 15 games for tonight, I would actually say B- is what I would say. That's my initial grade. I say B- because, number one, that's still below expectations. It's solid. It's above average. He hasn't been a below average player, but he's also not living up to his status, and that's where I think B- literally hits perfect. It's a B-. He's above average, but he's not playing to the level he should be playing at. tonight was exactly the player that he was last season. 3-4 point night now for him this evening. I know the stats crew was still hanging out with us, trying to figure out the final
4
ones
points.
there. But 4 points, you can't really complain about that. And I believe 6 total shot attempts, 2 on goal. It was a good night for Kirill Kaprizov. I don't know if it was Victor Rask, if that was really it. I don't really think it is. But he also had a very, very good night tonight, and they needed him. They needed him to have a big night.
And make no mistake, Victor Rask reacts to being scratched. So, don't expect this next game. This is Victor Rask often pops back up. Victor Rask is probably a better player than he shows quite frequently. So if you do what the Wild has done of late, which is scratch him, he's going to come back with a pretty damn good game, engaged. He tends to wane at times, and he's so slow at times that's a problem. But yeah, I mean, the thing with Kaprizov, I really felt this too. And Dex, so there's this perception that, well, I mean, look at the points. I mean, yes, he had 3 goals, but I think going into tonight, he was tied for the team lead, if I'm not mistaken, with Ryan Hartman in points with 11, I think, in 15 games. And there's this perception of, I mean, come on, guys, look at the points. He's playing pretty well. I mean, Matt Zuccarello was saying tonight, I mean, he was playing pretty well. Okay, here's the thing. Kirill Kaprizov, first of all, just signed a 5-year, $45 million contract. Second of all, a lot of people like us who are watching this right now watch the Wild play a lot. Pretty well is not sufficient. Like, pretty well is Brandon Duhaime. Okay, he's playing pretty well. Okay, awesome. That's really good, right?
Right.
Maybe Sturm. Nico Sturm's playing pretty well. Okay, yeah, it's not great, but it's pretty well.
Right.
I would give, going into tonight for a season grade, I would give Kaprizov not an F, not a D. I would give him a C, because he had been, for him, average. He was the kid who was doing no work, and he could still pass the test. And it wasn't a disaster. But
very much me.
Yeah, well, and it's me too. But guess what? I wasn't. But if you had paid me $45 million over 5 years to go to school, I'm going to get A's. He was not applying himself. And the Tuesday game against the Sharks, in some ways, for Kaprizov, I think, from the standpoint of those around him, is a blessing in disguise, because it was a low point. And it was so bad that, and it's very clear, Dean Evason does not ignore that. Like, he's not going to come out in the post-game press conference and fillet Kaprizov. Like, he's not going to go nuts. He's not going to tell you, oh, this guy, as he said in his answers on Tuesday, I'm not going to address individuals by name, but there are a lot of guys, including Kaprizov, that can do far more. And he sent the clear message by basically taking away the carrot that is Zuccarello and then dangling it back, which is great. That's fine. But I applaud any coach of this franchise that basically takes the superstar player and says, okay, if you're not going to be that guy, there's going to be pushback here. And to not see what happened with Kaprizov tonight as being a wake-up call is to have buried your head in the sand and be like, I just love the Wild, and Kaprizov can do no wrong. And that's how we get into these problems of guys like Parise and Suter and that whole group doing their own thing because they're treated as prima donnas and special players. So just starting off, I loved the fact that Dean saw a problem and he addressed it very quickly and he nipped it in the bud. And the result tonight, 7 goals, was a really impressive effort from pretty much everybody on that team.
I'll say this for Dean Evason, and this one has taken me by surprise. The longer he's been the coach, he's a very self-aware guy. I thought the interpretation of when he got that interim tag label, I believe that was shortly before the bubble in Vancouver, and we kind of thought, oh, that's interesting. There was no vetting process. You're not going to do a coaching search. It was a 2-year contract extension, which, by the way, I believe, like, this is the last year of his contract, right? He doesn't have anything attached to his contract for next season as it stands right now. And you and I both thought, a little strange. I wasn't as down on it. You had, I think, a few more questions than I did, but we just kind of figured, whatever, let it play out, right? They're going to the bubble. There's so many other questions this team has to answer. The head coach, albeit important, not highest on the priority list, but he the way he talks about the team in his post-game comments is really, really impressive. Like, Bruce Boudreau was an amazing quote, and Boudreau will also shoot you straight. But he also kind of would get, I think, caught up sometimes in the media light, and would get more caught up with what he wanted to say and get caught up with the points and all this stuff. Dean has a much more business approach, but also is, I think, getting a lot more comfortable in his own skin. He's a lifer. He's been in hockey for his entire life. And he had a cup of coffee in the NHL. He wasn't along for a long time, but he's logged in a ton of games in minor leagues. And
he actually did play.
Did he play a lot of games in the NHL?
A bit. Hartford, the Sharks. Yeah,
he bounced around a little bit. And he had a nice little career, right? But as his head coaching tenure, I think, has drugged along, he's become just more comfortable and aware. And when he's calling out players not extending shifts, I mean, that's the second time, and it's not a coincidence. I think he's bringing it up for the second time in the last, week and a half, because Parise and the Isles were here a couple weeks ago, and Suter and the Dallas Stars were here tonight, that guys are not extending their shifts. It's a team effort. It's a team game. It's not about individuals. It's not about highlights. It's about the betterment of the team. And I don't think it's a coincidence that both times brought that up, that it's been Zach and Ryan in town. To me, he's just been very impressive. There's a reason he was a finalist for Jack Adams last year. He's a damn good coach, and I won't eat crow on it because it wasn't like I was down on it, but he has taken me by a huge surprise of how good of a coach he really is.
I will eat crow because I did not think, I had no idea that he was going to be this effective. But let me also, in fairness to this discussion, Declan, give credit where credit is due as well. Dean wouldn't be as emboldened as Dean is, and he does a very good job because he doesn't call out players. Like, it's not like a bash fest. Like, Bruce would get so upset he'd start to bash. He'd start to make it very clear and that he was bashing certain guys. And yeah, Bruce was a great quote, and I like Bruce. But the credit here also goes to Bill Garrett, because it's really crystal clear that Dean has the support of his GM completely, and that this team is no longer run by any players. And if you get out of line, there's going to be pushback immediately now. Like, you're not going to be able to call your shots, call your ice time. Anything that you do is going to be met with, oh, no, you don't. And that is the biggest change. And that's tough in sports now too, because I mean, we are in a coddled world of sports. And I love the fact that Dean couldn't get away with this if Bill didn't have his back. If Kirill's people could run to Dean or to Bill and say, he's picking on Kirill again. This ain't fair. He's got to play with Mats. And Bill's like, yeah, you know what? I'll talk to Dean. That takes the oomph out of Dean immediately and compromises him. So what I think that we're seeing here is a really good tandem and a team of the GM and coach are front and center. And you know what? If Dean comes to Bill and says, Mats and Kirill are doing nothing but passing back and forth, and it's ticking me off, and Kirill just played a terrible game, I think Bill says, go ahead, right. Do what you want to do. And this doesn't mean that you're going to scratch Kirill, which you should not do. This doesn't mean that you're going to discipline him, but you are going to make it very clear in any language Kirill wants to speak. You're going to make it very clear what the pushback and fallout is going to be. And it's no accident too that what I think it was, if I can look at the box score, which I did hang around to get. It's no accident that the wild second goal of the game at 15:09 of the second period by Kaprizov on a feed from Zuccarello, which was a gorgeous feed,
was awesome,
through the legs of the Stars defenseman in front. And Kirill was unchecked. Kirill was standing there completely alone just for the tap-in. But it's no accident that goal was a thing of beauty. And this was also a message to Mats too. Like, Mats played a far better game tonight. So that's what I like too. The whole thing off of that horse bleep performance on Tuesday, it's not just Kirill. Dean and Bill sent a message to everybody on that team that what you used to get away with here is not acceptable. Yep. And I can't tell you how much I love the fact that it got nipped in the bud immediately. Like it didn't fester because it felt like it used to fester for like 3 or 4 games, right? And then the furious rallies would come out and they'd be like, let's go. Yeah, we're going to show people. This didn't feel like that. This felt like the players had been basically chastised appropriately, and that they're like, oh, okay. Instead of the players basically saying, well, we played really poor for 5 games and now we're going to take it seriously. This was one really bad game and bang, back to business, 7 goals. Everybody, I thought, for the most part, played great. Cam Talbot was really good. Like I loved Kaprizov's game, but I also loved the overall effort. And there's just now a no nonsense, you're not going to get away with this crap approach that we didn't see in that building for probably 7 years.
I mean, just the attitude of the team. I can't remember the last time I've seen it, at least since I've started covering games for the last 5 years. That first year of Bruce, when, they had 100+ points and they had home ice advantage against the Blues. That was a Jake Allen series. That season went swimmingly. Things were clicking, but there wasn't, I don't really remember there being like a confident mantra about the team. It was like, oh, this team's playing really well. But there wasn't a swagger and there wasn't anything. There was new life in Bruce, and those young kids were playing well, but there wasn't an it factor.
Yeah, and there was also feeling that Dex too. Off your point, there was always the feeling that, because I think we both thought that Bruce was a good coach. So this is not to say that he was not, but from Yo to Torch to Bruce, I always was guessing that a coach might be in control, but I could never identify it. Like right now, coming out of the press conference that we both went to tonight with Dean, there's no question in my mind. He is in complete control.
He's in control.
Like I remember going out of the Bruce press conferences and being like, this still feels like Zach and Ryan and Suits and Koivu are probably calling the shots here. And Bruce is trying to do the best that he can.
Sure.
We both sit there with Dean and you listen to him, and it's a business-like approach, and it leaves you with no doubt that, I wonder if Kaprizov's trying to run this team. There's none of that. And that is so important for the core sake of the franchise and team, if you are ever going to have success. Because the previous thing too, Declan, was this: the Suter Parisi teams at their best had a lot of talent. So they could win on talent at times. That was, it didn't have to be cohesive. Now, they were never going to make a playoff run, but they could win games on talent. This team has talent, but more important, it has structure.
Yeah, it has structure. It's deep. When you win 7-2 against the Stars, and by the way, a bad Stars team. That Stars team ain't good.
I want to talk about them in a second.
And we'll get there.
I got a observation. Go ahead.
That team stinks. And look, the Sharks aren't good either. They're in a transition period as well, but the Stars aren't supposed to be in a transition period, and the Stars were stinky tonight.
The Sharks are hungry.
Yeah.
They're not that good, but they're hungry.
Yeah. And
no pun intended.
Tonight, it was a complete team performance. I see a ton of YouTube comments right here on our YouTube channel. Talk about Rem Pitlick. Yeah, Pitlick was awesome again. He has a hell of a shot. I mean, I covered him at the U of M for off and on for a year and a half, and he's always been this talented. Nashville is probably kicking themselves. They made a risky decision to try to send him on waivers, and the Wild swooped him up. And that fourth line has just been damn solid all season long. You can't ask much for him. I mean, when you win 7-2, you would think that, eventually you'd get those guys more minutes, and those guys only played 9 minutes tonight. They didn't play a ton, but when they were on the ice, they were effective. They were creating chances. You got to love that. Cam Talbot tonight was phenomenal. Talbot, in my opinion, has been disappointing. He's regressing. All signs that I was warning you about in the preseason are really coming true with his game tonight. I thought was one of his strongest games of the season. Even with the Stars being disappointing, they have firepower. I mean, they still have Ben. They still have Sagan. Robertson's going to be a very special player for them. Radulov was, probably on the wrong side of his career, but they have talent still. They're just not cohesive, and their top players aren't scoring a lot of goals tonight. And they look awful. I think Bowness might be the next coach fired. And maybe not for the right reasons or wrong reasons, but because that team is supposed to be good, and they look bad tonight. And I know I think I know your observation is going with them, but just to wrap up the grand scheme of things, this entire team played great tonight. I think Foligno was the only forward without a point. I maybe even saw at one point by the end of the game tonight. So like everyone was contributing. You got 3 defensive pairs that are rock solid. The only thing that I think I have questions about is this goaltending. This goaltending statistically and analytically has been bad, but the Wild are overcoming it. And goaltending is random. Goaltending is certainly random. It's the weirdest damn thing in the world. Kata once again, looks like the best goalie in the league. If you would have told me 20% through the season, who's going to be the Vezina candidate? Yeah. Carter Hart, I would have been like, no, that ain't happening. He's a nice goalie, but he won't be a Vezina candidate. Goaltending's random. I have questions there. I think Capo still has to get one of these starts in Florida against Tampa or Florida. I don't care who that is. But tonight, overall, you win 7-2. There's not a lot to complain about.
No. So, in fact, I believe that you're correct. So, Foligno was a +1, and in looking through here, no, it looks like the rest of the forwards had points. So that stat is absolutely correct. The Foligno line gets us to the fact that they put Ek, Greenway, and Foligno back together. And I know that Greenway on Tuesday actually played in the midst of a terrible game by the team, a decent game.
Played decent.
Dean said, I think that Greenway's been back for 5 games, and Dean's point tonight was, well, I think he's played hard in all 5 games. I will say this. When you put Jordan Greenway with Ek and Foligno, Declan, he has no choice but to work his ass off.
Yeah.
And he did tonight. And he is so because I've always been the one who said, I think you can put Ek with Kaprizov. I think you can do this or that. But I wonder now if we're going to go back to those 3 players being left together, because it does seem to be the best way to get the most from Greenway and for him to apply himself is to have it be Ek, Foligno, Greenway, because then Greenway has no way to take shifts off.
Correct.
Like if he does, it's going to be I think his pride kicks in.
Yep. You can tell
that's a big deal to me.
You can tell he's moving his feet a ton. He's skating really hard. He's working hard. The issue is, and look, yeah, it's 2 strong games from him. So I don't want to knock it too much, but like how many times do you have to keep telling a 25, 24-year-old player, hey, we need you tonight. Hey, we need you to bring your A game tonight. Eventually, you get tiresome of that. And to be honest, if this is what gets him motivated for the rest of the year, great. But if I'm Bill Guerin, there's only so many times I can start having that conversation with a young player before I realize he just is who he is, and I'm going to move on, which is why I didn't at the time, and I still really don't. And he's not lighting the lamp a ton this season, but like trading Luke Cunnin. I didn't like that move. I didn't like bailing on a young player like that. But to the point of why you do it, I can see why, maybe by the deadline or most likely in the offseason, why you would, if I'm Bill Guerin, I'd part ways with it if Greenway continues down this up and down trend that's not worth sticking around with.
Now, the nice thing, to go back to Pitlick's game, and he is he's fast. I didn't know he was this fast, but he's got great speed.
Yeah, he's
quick. The one thing this team has now, and we've talked about this before, but it's probably worth broaching again. The one thing that you see consistently, if they're playing well or not, is the speed now. They've got 4 lines of speed, and that 4th line has wheels. That 4th line, we are so far past the days of, well, Koivu's declining. What can we do with him? Let's stick him on the 4th line. He can win a couple faceoffs here and there. We are now to Sturm wheels. Duhaime, who's a tough cookie, wheels. Pitlick wheels. And so when you do employ that 4th line, because of their speed and skill, they're going to naturally create, which we saw tonight. So when they bring on that line, they actually present some problems for opposing teams because of that speed. And it is such a great starting point, just from a fundamental roster construction standpoint, to have a team that has this speed now, and this has got to be easily the fastest team that this franchise has had.
I agree.
I don't ever remember where you went 4 lines deep with speed. I remember where you went 4 lines deep with a tough guy on it, or again, Koivu, a declining player, and you're like, what should we do? Let's stick him on the 4th line. And that's where it's weird, because as well as you played tonight, Victor Rask really doesn't fit in long term.
No.
And the thing with Rask is tonight's game didn't surprise me one bit. Let's talk about that in 3 games. So the Wild now goes and they'll play the back-to-back games that you were talking about, Saturday and Sunday against the Panthers and the Lightning. And then I believe it's next Wednesday before Thanksgiving, they play the Devils in Jersey. I'm sure Rask is going to probably play in all 3 games now. Let's see what Rask is doing against the Devils, because that's about the game where he starts to sort of tail off. And that's the one thing with him is previously Rask could fit in fine, but there's going to get to be a point in time here, if he keeps playing consistently, Dex, where his lack of speed is going to show up because everybody else, for the most part, is so damn fast, which is a good thing.
Right, and we were talking with our friend of the show, Dan Myers, in the post-game presser today. Like, what happened to Nick Bukestad? I've really Nick Bukestad isn't a thing to write home about anymore. I mean, when he came out of the U of M, kind of similar to Pitlick, a very prolific player at the U. I had a nice couple seasons with Florida, but clearly Nick Bukestad's future in the NFL is a bottom 6 forward. And I didn't think you had to take him out of the lineup by any means. And this is where, like Victor Rask scores a goal tonight, and he's the product of a 7-2 win, so he'll get a leash, and he'll get probably another longer tenure to probably play both of these back-to-backs against 2 very good Florida teams. But also, like, I don't think Nick Bukestad in 15 games, he just has the 2 goals. I'd rather play Nick Bukestad. Like, I would rather, I mean, he can at least keep up a little bit more. I don't really understand the need of just playing Victor Rask because he is slow. He doesn't fit the DNA of this team anymore.
Yeah, but it's weird because he does give Kaprizov at times a pop. So I think that's why they put him back in. I'm just saying I don't think it's gonna keep up. No. But I wasn't surprised one bit that he came back after being scratched for a lengthy period of time and played well, because he sort of does that. But the most important thing tonight was I think the wake-up call was far more to Zuccarello and Kaprizov. And they clearly got that. And in fact, when Kaprizov answered 2 or 3 questions in a post-game press conference through an interpreter, and it was crystal clear from what he said through the interpreter that he got the message. Like this was not, I didn't see that coming. He knows he played horse bleep on Tuesday. He knows he knows that 11 points in 15 games and the way that he was playing, 3 goals isn't him. He's not dumb. And I certainly don't think he's a lazy player. He's gotten off to, in my opinion, a below average start for him, which for most guys, again, it's fine. It's fine. I mean, look at the points. I mean, he'll be fine. Well, yeah, but fine's not what you want from a guy who just basically maxed you out on a 5-year contract. And to go to our conversations that we have so often, Dex, with Phil about Cousins, it's a salary cap league. So like, you can't be like, well, it's fine, it's going to be fine. No, it's not. You can't go get more guys. He's got to do what you expect him to do. Let's move on to the blue line. Can we, please?
Okay.
For those who are watching this, I'm just going to turn this guy around. Yeah, that's right. I got the Suter bobblehead out. There's a reason. I wish I had the Stars one. My guess is there's not going to be one.
Maybe a promotion.
I don't think so.
We'll have to talk to our friends in Dallas and see when the next Ryan Suter night is.
Not unless Ryan demands one, which, by the way, is very possible. Okay, so let's go through, first of all, the Wild blue line tonight. And I'm going to go through 6 defensemen that played, and I'm going to give you numbers.
Okay.
That's going to be what I like to call time on ice. Okay? Time on ice. Let's see. First defenseman pairing, Goligoski, 19 minutes. And then let's see. Let me go down to number 46, Jared Spurgeon, 23-19. Okay. Mm-hmm. Second pairing, Brodin and Dumba. Dumba, 1902. Brodin, 21-39. Third pairing, Kulikov, 1608. John Merrill, 1609. Got all that?
Yep, I do.
Now, let me go up to the Dallas Stars end of the box score to a guy who wears number 20 and was a -2.
All right.
And time on ice, 23:58. Played more than any Wild defenseman tonight. And I tweeted this, and I said this to you in the press box. You know what? See, I don't agree with you. I don't think Dallas is a bad team because they have too many good players to truly be a bad team. But as I tweeted, they are a perfect Ryan Suter team. And it was so nice to watch the opponent be a Ryan Suter team instead of the team that you cover or root for. I don't know. Whatever your affiliation or your thoughts about the Wild is, it was so nice to watch Dallas be the Ryan Suter team, which is a team with some, no pun intended again, star power, some very nice players, and a team that comes into your barn and underachieves in a mighty way. And yet you look, and the defenseman who Bill Guerin bought out, shockingly to some, on the same day that he bought out Zach Parise, played 23:58 more than any Wild defenseman, and he got his, but the Wild got the win. And here's the last, to me, the capper to it, and it's no accident. It is no, he would never admit this in 1,000 years, but it is no accident that Alex Goligoski had a goal, his first with the Wild.
Yep.
Two assists, 3 points, +4. Alex Goligoski is, without question, the replacement on the Wild for Ryan Suter. And I love the fact that his goal came on a wrist shot, which of course suits the shot. It was a perfect night if you are a Wild fan or Bill Guerin to be justified for exactly what happened.
Yeah, even looking at Suter's minutes, and look, the Stars had a ton of power play time tonight. Just looking at the splits here for their minutes, because I can do that for you.
And he's on the first power play too,
which is hilarious. So
imagine that.
In all situations, Suter, 23:58, and then 5-on-5, Suter was 15:10, and then on the power play, he logged 5:15.
Yep.
So he logged 5.5 minutes basically on the power play. The next closest defenseman was Heiskanen at 4:50. So he was extending shifts. He was taking his time out there. It was classic Suter. It was classic Ryan Suter.
It really was. Made me so happy.
I mean, yes, I agree that there's too many cooks in that kitchen to not be delicious, right? Like they're
John
the Stars.
Klingberg,
Klingberg's damn good. Asa Lindell is a pain in the ass. There's good players on that team, but they're not playing very well right now. And their top players also aren't scoring big goals.
And their coach might get fired.
I think he's gone. I think he's as good as gone. I really do. But this was classic Suits. This was classic Suter. Yeah. This is classic Ryan Suter. He played 5.5 minutes. He overextended shifts. It's not too surprising to see, even if I can do this really quick. Ryan Suter only had 5 long shifts on natural stat trick. So basically, shifts that he overextended himself. He had 5 shifts that were overextended for a normal defenseman, which was the most of the defensemen. Of
course it was.
It was the most. Actually, it was the most of the team. Ben and Fasca had 4 shifts, but he had he had actually, there's an extra long. I forgot about that. He had 6. He had 6 extra long shifts. Yeah, shocking. So yes, I'm not shocked at all that he ends up cracking 23.5 minutes and logs up a bunch of shots.
He's upset right now, shaking his head at you. He's like, "Don't talk about it anymore."
Yeah. Sorry, Suits. I'm glad the Wild have 3 defense. Yeah, and the Wild too, to the contrary, have 3 pairs that roll, man. Kulikov and Merrill are phenomenal. I mean, usually you put 2 guys in your back end. Look at, Brad Hunt. Look at Ian Cole. You can just kind of plug and play guys there. They're not going to shipwreck you.
Kulikov's been good.
But Merrill and Kulikov have been good.
Yeah, and I was concerned when Ian Cole went and signed with the Hurricanes. I thought that's a huge loss, and it might be a loss. But these guys have been good. I mean, Bill Guerin, let's give him credit where credit is due. That guy has pushed the right buttons. He made the right moves. This team is fast. He bought out the right guys. And I know that there's going to be cap pain, and that's true. But when you see this team play now as a team, it's so refreshing. And this is, and full disclosure, this is why I complained for like 5 years. This is what I wanted. Like, we're watching that game tonight, and yes, Tuesday was terrible, but previously that Tuesday performance would have dragged on for like 3 games.
Right.
And now it's just purged. It's done. And Dean does Dean's thing and Bill does Bill's thing, and the players are kept in line. And that's incredibly important. And the locker room lawyers are all gone. And that's what you see now. I'm not saying that they're all great guys. I have no idea. Don't really care. As long as they keep their mouths shut and do their jobs, that's all you care about. Right. So that's why, I mean, and Ryan and Zach in their prime were really good players, but as far as what they brought from an off the ice perspective of empowering the team, they were terrible. And now you see with guys like Dumba and Foligno and Spurgeon, and just go down the entire list, everybody's involved. And the fourth line doesn't get to play begrudgingly because, well, get off the ice. You're not supposed to be. Seriously. You see that fourth line now. That fourth line's important. And I love the fact that the coach can make moves and shake things up. And there's no like, well, how is Kaprizov going to take this? He might not take it well. I wonder if he's going to give a half-ass effort. Well, he doesn't. He responds to it. So like tonight to me was the blueprint of how, or the example of how much things have changed. And, guys, I'm sorry, Zach and Suits, but it's just a different era. In fact, you know what? Go sit on the shelf.
Yeah. Put them up there. You know what you need? You need to get Fiala. You need to get Kaprizov.
There's not. There is a Kaprizov one I found online.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be shipped in February. It's a bobblehead.
You know the shipping?
But it's like $60, and I really, so I've been urging.
That's surly money right there.
That's surly money, and I also don't know if I want to like. Here's what I want. I'm urging two things. I'm urging the Wild to make a Kaprizov, and I'm urging the Wolves to make an Ant.
An Ant, yeah.
Because I've got Cat around here, and the Cat's great. I love the Cat doll, but the Cat bobblehead is fine. But I need an Ant and a Kaprizov
and a Jefferson then at that point, right?
And I really don't want to. Yeah, it's a good one too. I really don't want to spend $60 on a Kaprizov from an outside provider.
And by the way, no Twins rookie is allowed at the table until he's worth it. So.
Yeah,
Alex Kirilloff, you might be fine, but no.
You earn your bobblehead. The three, you nailed it right there. The three I want are Kaprizov, Ant, JJ.
Like Joe Ryan and Alex Kirilloff can look at the other table, like, oh, I want to sit with the cool kids.
They can't have bobbleheads.
Prove to us you can sit with the cool
kids.
You
don't get one,
and then maybe we'll talk. Maybe
you don't get one of these.
Can't sit with us
until you're a star.
Yeah,
until you're a star. JJ's a star. Kaprizov's a star. Ant, I like enough. All right, plug our stuff, and then we're done.
Yeah, Judd's Hockey Show, Judd Zolgad, Declan Goff here.
What we got.
Hit the subscribe button if you want regular Minnesota sports content, daily Minnesota sports content. Minnesota Wild, Timberwolves, Vikings, sometimes Twins, sometimes Gophers content. Darren Doogie Wolfson also helping us out.
Byron Buxton, reckless speculation. That's
plenty of that.
That's what I'll tell you.
Dukes and Judd hit that this week. If you want some baseball conversation there, if you want some Minnesota Wild conversation, because Judd and I will be doing these post-game shows, I should say, semi-regularly throughout the week, and we'll also provide bonus episodes when we do them right here on this YouTube channel. So if you want Minnesota Wild content, please hit the subscribe button. We're almost at 10,000 subscribers. So please help us get there. We literally built this channel basically like a year ago.
Awesome.
Phil, Judd, and I came up with the idea of starting to funnel a secondary YouTube channel. And obviously the Minnesota Vikings play the Packers this week. So we still got plenty of stuff to do. Judd's Keys makes his return tomorrow. It's Feedback Friday on Mackie and Judd.
Yep.
And actually, Judd, I don't want you to do it. I don't want you to do it.
Yep.
But tomorrow on Feedback Friday is going to be a double pennant Friday because the Wolves kick the Spurs' ass tonight.
Yep.
And also the Minnesota Wild obviously won big against the Stars we've been talking about. So it's a double pennant Friday on Feedback Friday.
Two flags waving in the wind. Yep, that's right.
So please hit the subscribe button if you like what you're hearing. We appreciate you guys.
And then
Vent Line on Sunday, which we can't. It's Vikings Packers week. I love Vikings Packers week. Literally one of my favorite weekends on the sports calendar year, and we'll have Vent Line ready to rock on our Purple Daily YouTube channel. Subscribe to that as well.
And tomorrow on PD, I want to talk about something. Is Aaron Rodgers going to play? He isn't practiced this week. He's got a bad toe. Something's going on there. I think we might. If we see Jordan Love, 5-5, folks, 5-5. Okay, Declan, take it away.
All right, pass, shoot, score.